Morning, Urban Explorers. Got a little treat for you Civil War buffs. For those of you that have been on my Battle of Atlanta tour, you know I always start by providing some context. And I talk about the Atlanta campaign, which was a series of battles that were prosecuted by Sherman and the Union Army on their way to Atlanta in the spring of 1864. And I'm visiting the location of one of those battles. This is called Tunnel Hill, and lots of interesting information here on these signs. Let's start with this. Western and Atlantic Railroad Tunnel, the 1,447-foot long Chattooga Mountain Railroad Tunnel is 1/2 mile east of this marker. The tunnel was completed in 1850, and this opened while the Western and Atlantic Railroad from Atlanta to Chattanooga. This was the first railroad tunnel completed south of the Mason-Dixon line and linked railroads from the Atlantic to the Mississippi River. The railroad was operating during the late 1840s, and goods and passengers were portaged over the Chattooga Mountain while the tunnel was under construction. The community grew up near the construction activity, and Clisby Austin built a 3-story hotel in 1848. Tunnel Hill was incorporated on March 14th of 1848. The Western and Atlantic Railroad was approved by the Georgia legislature in 1836 and was surveyed by Stephen Harriman Long. Construction of the 137-mile line took 13 years and cost more than $4 million. William L. Mitchell was the chief engineer, and William Clay was the chief mason. Gray was given the honor of being the first to pass through the tunnel when the two headings were driven through on October 31st of 1849. The tunnel was in use until larger locomotives and loads necessitated a larger tunnel in 1928. The tunnel played a role in one of the most colorful exploits of the Civil War, the Great Locomotive Chase. James Andrew and his band of Union engine thieves raced the stolen general through the tunnel, closely pursued by the Texas under William Fuller and Confederate forces. Boy, that's a mouthful. That's one of the more interesting signs, markers that I've seen. It talks a lot about everything from the Western and Atlantic Railroad. It talks about the beginning of Atlanta. As you probably know, that's Stephen Harriman Long, who was the Union or the federal railroad surveyor, came down and found the place for the Georgia railroads to connect to the Midwest, and that's how Atlanta got started as terminus. So here's about Tunnel Hill. May 7th, 1864, the federal forces under Major General W.T. Sherman began the campaign for Atlanta by seizing Tunnel Hill. Howard's 4th Army Corps, having marched from Catoosa Springs, drove Wheeler's cavalry from the railroad tunnel south to Mill Creek Gap. Palmer's 14th Army Corps, moving from Ringgold, which is U.S. Highway 41, i.e. Cobb Parkway, supported Howard on his right and extended the federal front to Mill Creek Gap, where its route joined left of the 20th Army Corps in Dogwood Valley. These operations were designed to engage the Confederate forces at Dalta, while McPherson's army moved from the west to Snake Creek Gap, 18 miles south of Tunnel Hill. So I'm going to go take a visit to the museum right here. This is the Western and Atlantic Railroad Tunnel Museum and Visitor Center. We're going to be doing a trip up here. I think it might be for members only, but maybe not. I can't remember. But if you look on uxatl.com/tours, you will see all of our upcoming tours. And I've designed a 3 to 5 day, very flexible itinerary starting up in Chattanooga. And this is our first stop right here. So I'll let you know more once I get around the museum. This is Steve Sines with Explore ATL Tours.